So I'm Danielle. I'm a behavior analyst that works for Easter Seals of
Yo
Southeastern.
soy Daniel y soy...
We can still hear you, so I don't know
Ay,
for.
no.
I am our Director of Behavior Support Services, and I do a lot of our PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention and Supports parent groups when we are having in-person services. Now that we are home working virtually, we are providing some of these trainings and opportunities for parents to join us on certain topics that we would have in person. We also have Rachel on with us. Rachel, can you give us a little wave? There's Rachel. She is one of our occupational therapists from our Philadelphia Yaffe division, who is going to be sharing some information with us. And we also have Isabel. Give us a little wave, Isabel. She is our social worker also from our Philadelphia division, Yaffe, who's going to help us with the presentation today as well. We all kind of put this together last year as a team to share with our families and staff about potty training. We also have Braylon. Braylon, if you want to give a little wave too. Braylon is our moderator. So she is going to help us with the chat functions. If you guys have a question, you can also put it in the Q&A. There are going to be 3 slides that we have that are going to be kind of pauses or breaks where you guys will be able to ask questions. So if you type your questions into the Q&A and we're able to share them, Braylon will give us your questions during those times. Okay? All right. So we are going to get started. All right, so Isabel, you want to start?
Yes.
For?
Yes, I can definitely start. Danielle, just if you can try to help Isolette, because she's having some trouble. I can't access some of the features as the, I'm not the host, so I'm not sure exactly. But yeah, I think this is an important question for everyone. Why are we here? Why is potty training important? You know, we talk about our students as they're little kids right now, you know, they're cute, they're, you know, still in diapers and it's okay, but that's not going to be the case forever. So we really want to help, you know, work on these skills, these potty training skills to increase their safety, their sense of independence, their self-esteem. For our kids with special needs, these are really especially important. Independence and self-esteem are very much linked, especially for our students. So you might hear, you know, our teachers and therapists often talking about, you know, praising the students where they are for their efforts. That's really helpful for them to get this sense of feeling control. That independence gives them that sense of control. And that helps decrease any feelings they might have that of vulnerability, which is something we don't want them to feel. We want them to gain a sense of autonomy, a sense of self-efficacy. You know, this little guy Danielle, are you able to advance to the next slide?
Sorry, I got kicked out. Trying here, let's see.
Okay, thank you. So is my child ready? I think that's a big question for a lot of our parents. These are some of the signs that you might be seeing, and obviously you're their parents, you know their routines and their quirks better than we could ever, but some things you might see would be if your child is able to stay dry for a certain length of time, if they're, you know, sort of holding it in their pamper until they get, you know, maybe when they go down for a nap is when you see them really voiding. So if they're holding it for a long time, that might be a sign. And if you as their parent are able to predict when they might be going, those might be signs you might see. We also see a lot of kiddos, especially when they're going number 2. that they might look for some privacy. So they might have a certain area of the house that they go to, a certain room. We see this in the classroom a lot of times. There's a certain area where they're sort of out of everyone's sight line that they might be looking for to seek out a little of that privacy when they have to go. So that might be another thing. You might also see them making certain facial expressions. They might look really serious, like they're working on that BM really hard, or you know, even some other gestures that they might do. Again, you guys know your kids better than we do, so I'm sure there's things coming to your mind as we're talking. Also, we might see the kiddos sort of pulling their pants down, taking that pamper off when they're wet. That's showing some real awareness that they're uncomfortable. So you might also see some challenging behaviors. You know, they might be crying, or they might be frustrated when they are wet and uncomfortable, and that might be another sign. So these are some signs you might see. Like I said, even if you're seeing other things that are unique to your child, that can be a sign. And even if you aren't seeing some of these signs, that doesn't mean that your child isn't ready. That it's always a good time to start working on these things. You can always pick it up and leave it at any point. So you're not, you know, you're not sort of shutting that door if you're saying that maybe it, you know, you started and things didn't go as you planned. You can always pick it up at any time, and it's always helpful to, you know, start practicing no matter where they are with these skills.
Do you want me to do interpretation during the break?
Sorry, this is Danielle. We were supposed to have channels for interpretation. If the channels are not up, we can't interpret within the webinar feature.
Okay.
What we might have to do for our parents is set you guys up separately to go through the material after the webinar has recorded.
Okay.
So I think we're going to have Rachel jump in to start talking about motor skills.
Okay, so carrying out the task of toileting involves a variety of motor skills, gross motor and fine motor skills. Gross motor skills allow us to use larger muscle groups like whole body movements, think climbing on a playground. Fine motor skills involve small muscles of the body like those in our hands that we use, so think picking up a coin off of the table. So gross motor skills that are involved in toileting might be maintaining postural control to sit upright on the toilet, walking up to approach the toilet, turning around to sit down, stepping up on a stool, weight shifting to reach for toilet paper, to wipe, and to maintain standing balance while wiping or pulling up pants. Fine motor skills that are involved might include grasping pants or underwear to pull them up, opening and closing fasteners on pants like buttons, snaps, or zippers, flushing the toilet, using toilet paper to rip it, crumple it, and wipe. So looking at toileting in this way might help us identify not just what the child needs to work on, like, oh, this, and this, but also kind of looking at where we might be unknowingly presenting some extra motor challenges that may not need to be present, and making it harder than needed. So kind of asking ourselves, like, well, do clothing fasteners really need to be a part of toilet training at first? Maybe not. Should I get a step stool like the ones my friends' kids have that would require a step up? Or can we maybe eliminate that step? So where can we work around some of these things if they're challenging and eliminate barriers for the child by modifying the task or environment? Or where is it realistic to kind of hone in and target a specific skill? But the bottom line really is that, you know, it's not the case that all of these motor skills need to be mastered or present in order to work on potty training. That's definitely not the case. But if they're not, there's still things we can do. So that's kind of what I'm going to go through for the next few slides. So like I said, we might want to modify the task or environment. We might want to work on certain motor skills, or more likely some combination of both. And that's like the really individualized part, child to child, depending on their skills and abilities. But generally, that's what we'll talk about in the next few slides. So the first thing, we can go to the next one, that might help is finding equipment that works for your child and the environment. So we're just going to go through each one of these and kind of talk about what it is, some pros and cons. This first one is like if you just type into Amazon or Google, it'd be called a soft potty seat or a potty ring. They come in all sorts of patterns. They're nice and soft. They're nice because they make the opening of the toilet smaller, which can help a child have a base of support that is just more proportionally sized for their bodies. It can feel more secure, so they don't feel like they're going to fall in. If you've ever seen like kids with their white knuckles like clutching on the side of the toilet, it can just help them feel a bit more safe. And the soft ones are just like nice and comfortable, cozy, and that comfort can really make it a pleasant experience. Number 2 here, we have just a regular step stool or footrest. So I'm seeing in the chat, I want to make sure adult or child size.
Yeah, so Rachel, there was a question that was raised about, oh, I'm sorry, now I lost it. Oh, about using a child-sized or going straight to an adult toilet and what your considerations might be.
Yeah, definitely. So let's get to that when we get to number 6, because that's the example of like that child-sized, like really tiny potty. So let's go, because it kind of like, as we go through these, I think we'll kind of go through some of the ways to think about it. So we'll continue to number 2. That's a great question. So number 2 is just a regular step stool or footrest. If a child is sitting on a big potty, this is great because instead of dangling feet, having foot support really helps the child feel where the body is in space, and is just more comfortable too. But of course, it's a step stool too. It can be used to step up to the sink to get onto the potty. And this little girl here is using it as a nice footrest. Number 3, this is just an example that I wanted to include just to show that there are chairs out there for children who do have more involved motor and postural needs, to give them the support that they need for toileting. But this would be the type of chair that one would need to talk to the doctor about or seating clinic about if this seems like something that they might need. Moving on to number 4, this is a suction cup grab bar, which is an option for a non-permanent solution if a child would benefit from some extra stability. This could help for stability when the child is standing, to get help with wiping or clothing management. Number 5, this is an example of a system that has a step stool and a potty seat combined with the handles. I think I like the idea of it being all in one, but just looking at it, I imagine that it could be a little tricky maybe to motor plan, like how to approach it, how to climb up and turn your body and that kind of thing. But it's nice to have it all in one. I also imagine that it is a bit trickier to remove between uses in a shared bathroom than something like number 1 would be, where it's just the insert, take it out, put it on the floor between people in a shared bathroom. So here we are at number 6. This is the classic children's little potty chair. There are so many out there with characters. Some make flushing sounds, different heights, definitely a variety of prices out there too. And when searching for these, you also may find systems that are called like 3-in-1 systems or 4-in-1 systems, where it looks like this, but that potty serves a few different purposes. So Danielle, if you could advance to the next slide. There's a picture of what that looks like. So this is just one chair you buy, but it serves different purposes to grow with the child. So it starts out as a small potty, but then the inside seat part can come right out and go onto the big toilet. And then the rest of it flips down into a step stool or a footrest. An advantage to something like this is that it is cost effective because it serves many purposes, and it's convertible and grows with the child. And also, you know, for one of those kids who's from a sensory standpoint might be a little bit sensitive, like the kids that have a low threshold, who are quick to notice and respond to any input in their body, is very sensitive. Maybe kids that are sensitive to clothing or something like that, because the insert is the same from the small potty to the big one, it could be a nice transition for a kid like that who would really notice like every single feeling, and it'd feel familiar. So the question about, you know, the small potty or the big one, the small one from a motor standpoint as well, I'll comment on it. Maybe Danielle has something else to say too about it, but eliminating the step up can help if it would be difficult to motor plan that action. Like I said, approaching, walking, stepping up, turning around, and sitting down requires some motor planning to get there. It can just be easier to plop down, have it right there, and not require the extra step up, have it be already proportionately sized without needing like pieces. So Danielle, I don't know if you want to jump in for that question or if it will kind of be further addressed down the line either. I can pause here.
So what I always suggest is every child is different. Again, you want to make sure that you're taking into consideration the motor planning piece of it. Some kids prefer to sit on a smaller potty chair first. The larger potty, again, might be a little unstable. So using some of the supports like the step stool or the hand bar might help them to feel more grounded, more supported. But again, every kid is really different. It is helpful to trial different things without spending a lot of money. We want to say that we don't expect you guys to go out and buy all this stuff, right? Try things you can find that are inexpensive. You can even makeshift little step stools if you need to. We will link some of the resources at the end if you want specific links to some of these different types of chairs. But I will say that we'll have some more time for questions too. So, but I want to say that for larger kiddos, older kiddos, some of the smaller potty chairs we are finding are uncomfortable for those kids because their knees are kind of up a little high. So if you've tried for a while and your kiddo is a little older, or maybe you just started trying and your kid's on the older end, you might have to try to find a larger potty chair or just start on the actual toilet. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. Okay, so talking about clothing management. So starting out, bottoms with an elastic waistband that are easy to pull down would be perfect. Maybe they're nice and stretchy too, comfortable. We would want to avoid onesies, overalls, footy pajamas, and pants or shorts with complicated buttons, snaps, zippers, or ties. Of course, overalls can be cuter, but not for potty training, just because when it is go time, we might have very little warning. It could be as little as 5 to 10 seconds. We just want to be ready. And even if that wiggle room does become longer, which, it will, even a minute still may not be enough time to undo a whole elaborate fastener situation. So we don't want clothing to be a factor in hindering process. Luckily, with toileting, clothing is actually one of the most tangible, concrete factors that we are able to control in this process. So it is nice to have that and nice to just be mindful of, so that if we're considering it, it can just help avoid meltdowns of not making it in time. And when it is time to pull pants and underwear up and down, it's great to help where the kids need it, which can avoid frustration. Especially at first, while also allowing them to do as much as they possibly can. And one way to help get there is if, as the helper, you pull their pants up some of the way and then they finish the last bit of it, saying, okay, I'm going to start pulling up your pants and you finish. And also thinking about the language, I think Danielle's going to get into the language part of like being extremely specific and how that can help, and thinking about it in terms of the clothing part. It's the same thing, just trying to think of how we can be like as literal as possible, and the language we use surrounding that. So being very specific of what we do want them to do. So taking the example of pull your pants down, maybe saying instead grab the waistband, or modeling this, I hook my thumb into the side so I can really grab it, and saying push down, because that's what we're really doing. Pulling is like pull. Pushing, we're pushing them down. So switching that up can be helpful too, and just more specific. And then the last thing I want to make sure I said is that when pulling up our pants, most of the time we think about grabbing on either side, pulling right up, but sometimes we can get stuck getting the pants up over the butt. You've seen, we probably do it too, get a little jump in there, get them up. Kids do the same thing. It can help just to get one arm in the back, teach kids one nice pull up over the butt in the back can help get it up all the way and avoid some frustration.
Rachel, if I could just chime in, I think what you were saying too about encouraging wherever they are. So if they're, able to just hold the pants and, parent is doing most of the up and down, like praising them for wherever they are is really going to build their confidence and make this a more enjoyable experience for everybody.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for chiming in with that. Absolutely. So if your child's getting physical or occupational therapy, they may already be working on some skills that support toileting, but a lot of these skills that we already talked about, the fine motor skills and the gross motor skills involved, may already be occurring in your playtime. But let's just quickly talk about what those specific skills are and how they can help. So of course, nothing replaces practicing skills in the environment where they naturally occur, like right then and there practicing toileting, but playtime does provide an additional and really rich opportunity to develop skills in a fun and often maybe more low pressure situation. So we're going to go through a couple examples for gross motor and fine motor and how they help. So activities that target gross motor skills that you can do at home might be a homemade obstacle course. This can help with motor planning, and motor planning is the piece we talked about for like seeing a potty, like thinking about how do I get my body on to that potty? What do I need to do with my body? How to get there? And doing an obstacle course, switching up where things are is a really fun way to practice that skill. Using tape on the floor, walking on a line of masking tape or painter's tape to work on balance, which we need for being able to stand and pull our pants up and down. And then this last picture, any activity that incorporates trunk rotation like sidewalk chalk or painting on a patio with water where the child is squatting and moving locations while squatting too. Maybe they'll get on their hands and knees and be rotating their trunk to draw. This might help strengthen the muscles used to lower oneself onto the potty, as well as the trunk rotation and core strength needed eventually for like reaching for toilet paper and wiping and sitting upright on the toilet also. And then fine motor on the next slide. Thanks, Danielle. Activities that help target fine motor skills that you can do at home might be stringing beads or lacing pasta, where we're using both hands together, and we need this skill to eventually be able to do clothing fasteners using both hands together. Squeezing sponges during water play or in the bath can help with strengthening, which we'll need to be able to grab our waistband and pull those pants down, and also flushing. And then the last one is, tracing with cereal or manipulating any small objects. This is just a fun one. Can help with the precision needed for fasteners as well. Okay, we have one slide about sensory. It could be much more, but just wanted to pull some kind of common challenges. But from the smells to the sensations, toileting is a sensory experience. So for children with sensory processing differences, this can present some challenges that we might need to be prepared for. So this is certainly not all-encompassing, and sensory processing differences are typically highly individualized, but we'll go through a few. So flushing, for kids with auditory sensitivities, the sound can be intense. Something that can help is at the beginning, waiting until they're out of the room to flush, which can set everyone up for success. And then later on, maybe taking turns or making it a very exciting job. Another thing for the sound, like if bathrooms have like a fan going on, that buzzing that we might not be as tuned into, someone who's highly sensitive, it could be very agitating. So that might be time for like a small potty in the living room or something where we can kind of overcome that barrier, at least at first, to make it positive. The next thing is smells. So some children are extra sensitive to smells and all the smells involved in the process. So it can't hurt to have some things nearby that are pleasant just to grab, like smelling an unlit candle or a tiny bit of room spray, or using some nice scented hand lotion while we're on the potty. You can smell your hands, can help. Fear of the sensation. So the sensation of going in a diaper versus on the toilet is a different sensation of actually voiding. So if a child might be fearful of that sensation, it might be new. So we can definitely comfort them through that, encourage them, sing songs, make it positive. We can hug them while they're pooping if it's painful, you know, or if they're uncomfortable or scared of that feeling, we can get down and do that. We can also give them an elevated footrest to raise their knees on purpose if they're comfortable in that position. Sometimes that squatting position can help make pooping a bit more smoother just based on our internal anatomy there. If you've heard adults, the squatty potty, it's the same idea for kids. It can just help a little bit, maybe make it more comfortable experience. Discriminating sensations. It can be complicated at first to learn like what feels like poop, what feels like pee. For little boys, there's no need to stand at first, like just sit. If we're not sure what's going to happen, we can just sit. Another thing to think about is I think Danielle will get into reinforcers to help make it positive later in the presentation as well. But kind of considering like, you know, is a tablet the best thing right now? Because if it makes the child tune out, maybe we want to encourage more like toys or books, because we want the child to be like present to the extent they're able to be getting in touch with the sensations happening in their body. So just thinking about that and what we can do so that the child isn't like completely consumed or tuned out of the experience. And then the last one is, you know, for a kid that's movement seeking, it can be hard to sit still at all, let alone on the toilet. So ensuring comfort is just kind of like the first thing to look at here. Like, are they comfortable? Are their feet supported? We need something soft so that they just feel comfortable. Dimming the lights, making it a calming environment, calming music, trying a glitter jar, like you put water in the glitter, shake it, and then you sit until the glitter settles. Things like that. So that is what I have for the sensory piece.
So what we're going to do now is take a couple minutes just for any questions related to what Isabel or Rachel covered and so far. So Braylon, are there specific questions from the Q&A that would be good to ask now?
Yeah. Okay. So the first one kind of is very specific for what we were just talking about for transitioning from small to big potty. This is a question of, when would you transition a child from a small potty seat to the standard one?
So Rachel, I don't know if you want to jump in here. For me, and my son specifically, so I have a 6-year-old, we went through this, he does have typical development, but it was when he was comfortable, right? At first, the big potty was a little scary. So he felt more comfortable using the small one. Once and we'll talk about like schedules and that sort of training in a little bit, but once he was going on a regular schedule, he wasn't having as many accidents, then we tried using the big potty, and it was, we gave him the option of which one to use. Rachel, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think that definitely kind of covers it. And just like you said before, like it's so individualized, whatever is comfortable based on their size and how they're growing and what they like and what's comfortable.
Okay, good. I hope that helped. Braylon, is there another question?
Absolutely. Okay, my boy doesn't like sitting on the potty, even when he has to pee or poop. Is this normal?
Yes. Yeah, some kids don't like to sit. Part of it, I'll have Rachel piggyback talking about maybe the sensory component. I'm sitting on the potty. But some of it might be attention, right? Some kids just don't like to sit, period, right? So sitting on a potty is going to be just as hard, if not harder, than sitting in a chair to attend to something else. So I'm going to talk a lot about how to make it fun, right? Making it fun, engaging them while they're sitting to capture their attention will help a little bit. We'll talk more about that. Rachel, do you want to talk anything about like the sensory aspect to sitting on the potty that might help?
Yeah, I think definitely like looking at what is going on or how we can get to the root of like why we're not wanting to sit would be helpful. And tuning into like all those things we just talked about, like the environment, what noises are present, what does the positioning look like? Do they look overstimulated or overwhelmed in any way? Or do they look, bored and just wanting to like go on to the next thing? So it could be so many things there to kind of tune into and see what we can do to.
I was thinking too about temperature of the toilet seat, right? So if they're using a big potty and the tushies hit that temperature, it might be cold, right? They might like jump up too. So just like I just said, cueing into your environment. And when we're trying to figure out environmentally what's affecting a kiddo, just like change or tweak one thing at a time, right? If we change everything, we're not going to know what it was that was affecting them and what's helping or not. So you can make small changes to the environment to see what helps. But we'll talk more about getting their attention for sitting in a little bit, because some kids, that's where they're going to start. They're just going to plop their butt and then they're going to jump up, right? And that's okay. And you can reinforce that to begin with, and that is somewhere we can build on. How about one more question, Braylon, if there's one that's applicable?
Yeah. So going back to the signs of readiness, this is a question on that. So how often should the readiness signs be observed before we dive right into potty training? My daughter, who will be 3 at the end of the month, will go on her little potty after telling us only before or after a bath and hides for BMs.
Isabel, do you want to tackle this, or do you want me to jump on it?
I mean, my first thought is, you know, it doesn't hurt to try, right? Like, if she's already going on the potty at certain times of day and she's, you know, accustomed to it, maybe see if she'll be interested in trying, you know, to increase a little bit. And like I said earlier, you can always back off if things are sort of getting too challenging. So I think that's important to cue in. Like Danielle's going to talk a lot later about making this such a positive experience and how we can make it fun. So if you do dive in and things are, you know, becoming more challenging and you're feeling frustrated and she's feeling frustrated, take a week off and, you know, revisit it at a later time. That's my instinct. But go ahead, Danielle, what were you going to say?
Yeah, same thing. I was going to say that we talk about signs of readiness a lot. We hear it all the time. Are they ready? Aren't they ready? What signs are they showing? And are there definite signs of readiness? Yes, there are. But especially when we're talking about kiddos that have disabilities, those signs of readiness might be different, or we may have to interpret them differently. So that's why I don't want to get too hung up on what they're showing, what they're not showing, because there's somewhere you can start, right? And we're going to talk about scheduling and routines and making the potty training, toilet training routine part of the everyday routine. So you could always start there, no matter where they're at with signs that they're showing. So to answer the question, yes, she is showing signs, and that's awesome that she's already going. So try it, right? Like Isabel said, try the next step of maybe you're going to take her, you know, 2 or 3 times a day now within your routine, right? And see how it goes. And we'll talk about that routines just in a minute, okay? So hopefully that helped. We are going to move on, but we will have more time for Q&As. We'll have 2 more opportunities for questions, okay? So keep those coming in the Q&A, okay?
Thank
So
you
here we
guys.
go,
Those are really
routines.
good questions.
Yes, they are awesome questions, and they're going to help everybody. So don't be scared to ask a question, because there's no silly questions, and they'll help definitely more than just the person asking. So routines, I just brought it up, and we're going to talk more about it. Before you do some formal toilet training, right? So we're going to talk about schedules and formal toilet training in a minute. But before we do that, it's nice to just start practicing, okay? Start practicing sitting on the toilet as part of a routine. This might be your morning routine, your bedtime routine, or both. Now, like I shared with you guys, I have a son, and our morning routine when he was 2 and 3, around that age when we started, our morning routine was hectic, right? We were getting ready for school. I was getting ready for work. There was a lot going on. So morning routine is not where we started, okay? Maybe if you're home now, morning routine might be easier, but we started with our bedtime routine, okay? So he took a bath almost every night. So we would have him sit on the potty right before he went into the bath. And like I said earlier, as far as equipment goes, we let him choose. So we did have a little Elmo potty, like a little potty chair, and then we had the little inserts. So in our bathroom that we used for him taking a bath, he used the big potty for that. That was part of the routine with the insert. So we just started as part of that routine. Okay. And then you want to, even if they're just sitting for a second, even if they're not peeing on the potty at this point, you still want to start building that routine, right? So he sat on the toilet. I let him flush. He actually liked flushing, so I let him flush. And then we would wash and dry hands. Okay. And like Rachel touched on this, it's okay to help them through some or all of these other parts of their routine. We're guiding them through, we're teaching them, we're providing them support, and then at the end of this, we're going to fade some of those supports out as they get more accustomed to these routines, okay? I have an example of a visual schedule down here. A visual schedule is a nice way to teach steps in a routine. You want to build on what your current routine is, okay? So here's an example. If you get up, you wake up in the morning, then you have breakfast, you brush teeth, you can get dressed. Now, I don't know if you guys, but my morning routine is a lot more relaxed now, so it might not even look like this, right? But if you want to teach a child that potty is now part of our morning routine, a visual schedule is one way to do it, okay? Oops, sorry. I flipped that a little too quick. But we want to build on what you're currently doing. And I just put a note here. It's important to say that if you're still doing like laying down diaper changes, at this point, start there. Maybe you're just going to start with standing up changes, right? Getting them used to being vertical and getting changed. And maybe now instead of doing that in their bedroom, you're going to do it in the bathroom, right? So it's just slowly shaping this pottying routine. That's what we said. You can start somewhere, okay? Build on where you're at. So now I am going to switch my slide because here is a visual that is more specific to the actual toileting routine, okay? And when we do use visuals, we want to have them up at child's eye level. For most of our kiddos, at Easter seals, we use pictures that are bigger with little words. Now, if your child is able to read, if they're a little bit older, you can always shrink the picture and enlarge the words on some of these visuals, whatever is going to be appropriate for your child. But here's an example for one just for potty training, okay? We're going to sit on the toilet, we're going to use paper, we're going to flush, we're going to wash hands, we're going to dry hands, okay? There are ones that are even more specific about like the sitting part, right? So there's one that might be, okay, first we're going to sit, then we're going to pee, then we're going to stand up, then we're going to flush. So depending on where your child is at, there are different visual supports that you can use. And if you want some resources for visual supports, we will be able to find some for you. I don't think I have any linked at the end of this, but we can find some supports for you guys if you need some examples, okay? Language. So Rachel also touched on this a little bit. So we wanted to try to use appropriate terms for their anatomy. By labeling their parts like penis and vagina, okay? It can be confusing to kids if we use more like baby-like terms, okay? We also want them to get used to like the appropriate language, right? And it's, it's always funny, right, when kids start to use the language. I know my son, when we were talking about, girls have vaginas and boys have penises. Then he would like ask about like different people. Well, what does daddy have? Well, does my aunt have a vagina? Does this person have and he would just ask questions about it. And of course, I try not to laugh and try to like answer his questions, right? Because you want them to use the terminology appropriately, right? Also, we want to use positive language. I brought up PBIS a little bit at the beginning of this training, but part of positive behavior supports are using language that tell kids what exactly to do. So instead of saying, like, stop wiggling, we're going to say sit on the potty or sit still or have a quiet body on the potty, right? So tell them specifically what you want them to do. What are your expectations of them while fitting? Excuse me. Another example is like hold on to your book or have gentle hands instead of don't touch that, right? But I want to say here, jumping back to environment, that if there's lots of stuff around your potty, if they can grab and touch, they're gonna grab and touch it, right? So like the toilet paper, I remember like taking the toilet paper off the roll when my son was actually sitting on the potty. So just think about your environment. Think about what's around them, because it's easier to kind of like remove that stuff first than to keep saying, put your hands down, don't touch that, while you're trying the toilet train. And another point here, try to avoid some of those negative statements. I know when kids are little, we're changing baby diapers, we're saying like, oh, that's yucky, it's poopy. As kids get older, we want to use the appropriate terms, but we also want to try to avoid some of those negative statements so they don't have negative associations with bowel movements, right? So just don't do anything that could possibly, discourage them. All right, so what to expect? Every kid is different. We've said that a lot, but really, especially when it comes to toilet training, it's gonna look different for each kid. The start is slow sometimes because we start with routine. Okay, you have to make it fun. I'm gonna share, I have a lot of resources for you guys, potty songs, videos, books. While the kiddo is sitting there, we want them to be engaged, okay? If the kiddo is not engaged, they're just sitting there and they're bored, they're just gonna pop right back up, right? So make it fun. And some kids might, like I said, like first question, sit for a second and get back up in the beginning. Oh, sorry, I switched my slide. That's okay, okay? Reinforce them. We'll talk about reinforcement in a minute, but reinforce, give them positive feedback for just sitting for a second. And then you're going to build up the duration of how long you want them to sit on the potty before they can access that reinforcement. We always also focus on the urination first. The bowel movements and toilet training for that does come later on. I'll talk about that too when we get to the schedule training strategies. Be prepared for accidents. Okay, it's my statement. Accidents happen, literally, okay? It's gonna happen, okay? So be prepared. Some people put like, that like plastic stuff down in their house, or they only let their kiddos hang out where, they have like non-carpeted areas, but accidents are gonna happen. So you wanna try your best to not be too upset when it's happening. We're gonna talk about like some strategies for that as well, but just be prepared for the accidents.
Danielle, just a quick note, you might also want to stock up on undies. When we do this presentation live, that's like our giveaway gift. So apologies for not being able to offer those today, but yes. Laundry becomes a big issue when you guys are digging down and dirty in it. So it might be good to just have some extras on hand just in case.
Yes, thank you, Isabel. Stock up, right? Because you're going to be changing the underwear quite a few times if you're having multiple accidents throughout the day, right? And especially like if we're thinking about if we do go back to school or when we go back to school, right? That's one thing to think about, like sending in extra clothes, extra underwear, extra shoes, because they pee down into their shoes, right? So that's one thing to think about. Like, do you have all this stuff ready to go before you're starting?
And it's going to help with your stress level too, because again, we want this to be positive. It's hard if they're struggling and then you're like scrambling for what you need. So I've had a lot of parents who have just like a bin of changes of clothes just in the bathroom at all times. So anything you can do to set yourself up for success, just as you're setting your child up.
Yeah, exactly. Good point, Isabel. And this is, we know, an investment in your time and energy. I always tell the story and people think I'm mean, but my son was actually homesick for like a week when he was around 3. And I'm like, this is a great time to potty train. Like, I'm already taking off work. He's been home for a day already. He's not going back the rest of the week. And we took the week and the weekend to potty train him. You need some time, right? It's really helpful to have them home for a few days. So we always try to do this training before like spring break. In the spring, now everybody's home all the time. So, but again, I know some people are working. I'm obviously working and I have young kids at home. So think about if you are able to invest the time and energy into doing this right now, right? You have to kind of have that discussion and think about, whoever you're living with, whatever the dynamics are at home, are we going to tackle this right now? Because it will, be of the focus of your time and energy. All right. Tracking. Oh, my slides like to skip themselves. It can give you a good start if you're thinking about maybe potty training soon to just track what your kid's current voiding schedule looks like. How often, when are they going to the bathroom? Directly following the presentation, probably later on this evening, I will share with you guys some sample data sheets you guys can take a look at if you want to start tracking. It just has like date and time. Did they pee or poop? Was it, if they are going on the potty, was it in the potty? Was it in their pants? Just start tracking. You can even you don't have to be fancy with a data sheet. It can literally be a notebook, right? A piece of paper, right? But it will be helpful to just think about it, anticipate when they have to go. There are apps. Again, I'm a proponent of not spending money on things we don't have to, right? So if there is a free app, I haven't used it, but it's called Perfect Potty. You can use that. Or if there are other free tracking apps, you can try them. I always just say people that create potty, gadgets and apps and things for things like potty training and sleep, right? They're marketing to an audience, right? They know that you guys need help, that parents need help. So just be mindful of that. Try not to spend a ton of money. That's my extra to parenting sense. Okay, motivation reinforcement. This is really, really, really important. Okay, we have to find what is going to be a potty reward. Do you know what your kiddo likes? When I send you the resources, I'm also going to send you a preference assessment. So it's just kind of a way to figure out some reinforcement, some things that your kids like a lot. You probably know a lot of them, but it's good to kind of sometimes think outside of the box. When it comes to specific toys, maybe foods, activities, new things. Kids like a novelty, right? Sometimes you guys go to the dollar store and get a couple really cheapy new things, and because it's new, they like it, right? So we want to identify what we're going to use as our potty prize, okay? So what will make this effective is they have to like the item. It has to be realistic that they're going to use it or to get it every time. If you don't want your kiddo having chocolate every time they go to the potty, then don't do that, right? Don't pick that as their potty prize. And it has to be used just specific for toileting. So I know some people like to use tablets or iPads for the reward for sitting. I would suggest not using that unless you're able to restrict it throughout the rest of the day. Maybe if there's one song or video that you're going to use, that might work. If that is restricted, if you're able to restrict that. But it should be just special for pottying. I would say my son, when we did it, we did use a tablet, but he hadn't been introduced to the tablet yet. So it was novel, it was new, and it was only used for when he went to the bathroom. So some other ideas include lollipops, other preferred candies. Talked about the treasure chest of dollar store items, having a potty party, right? We always want to make it a party, right? Every time the kiddo, wherever they're at, if they're just sitting, if they're going potty, right, we're going to praise them and make a big, big deal of it. Oh, I can't believe they're to the bathroom. Great job. In addition to what we're giving them, right? So when my son would go, if he would sit and he would pee, oh, awesome, he went to the potty. Oh, wonderful job. Here's your tablet, right? So you're always pairing the party, right, with their prize, okay? I'm going to stop there. Are there any questions so far on what I talked about or anything from the beginning of what Rachel or Isabel talked about in the Q&A?
Hi, yeah, there are a bunch. We're getting some really great questions. Okay, my first one is, hi, my son is almost 4 and he can't sit or walk and he doesn't have control of his head. I'd like to set him in a big potty. How can I do that?
That's a wonderful question, and I think it starts with the equipment. Rachel, do you want to jump in a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I love that you are thinking about this because a child does not have to be able to sit or walk or control their head to be able to do this. But Danielle is right. We do need to think about the equipment first and foremost for kids like this. So that is definitely a conversation with your doctor to discuss it at a seating clinic, because those types of pieces of equipment are super personalized, so that the child would be measured and it would be really, really for the child. So that would be covered by insurance, and that might be a conversation for, you know, how all the other equipment your child has is gotten through their seating clinic or whatever process you use for that. If you guys have like a bathing chair or an activity chair, adaptive stroller or wheelchair, whatever it is, kind of the same process, and definitely initiate bringing it up at that next appointment to say, you know, we're interested in a chair for the potty. And they do make chairs that are convertible for both over the potty and for the shower. So just kind of talking about the options and seeing what's out there. It's a great question.
Awesome. Wonderful question. Braylon, is there another question?
Absolutely. All right. I have, my baby is just holding it when he leaves the restroom, and then he makes his pants wet. He can sit on the phone for about 10 minutes.
Okay, so it depends, right? Because there might be many things going on. So it's hard to say specifically what's going on. My first question is, what is your schedule? We're going to talk about scheduling in a minute. We've seen, especially when we're in a program, we see kiddos that we put them on the toilet like right after lunch, and then like a minute or 2 minutes, 5 minutes later, they go to the bathroom. We're like, well, what happened, right? So modifying the schedule a little bit. Okay, we're going to wait 10 minutes after lunch, and then we're going to put you on the potty. That might help modifying your schedule. I'd also ask, the question would be like, how long have you been trying? So we're going to talk about 2 methods of scheduling. So you might have to try like method 2 when we get there, where you have them sit a little bit longer, right? Because you know they have to go, right? So when we get to the different training methods and schedules, I'll talk to you about my son, who he would hold his bowel movements. And that is how we kind of remedied that. I had him sit for a longer period of time when I literally knew he had to go, right? He's like back there, but I literally could like see the poop like in his butt. And I'm like, you have to go potty. So I would like make him sit. I put a preferred movie on. I sat with him. I tried to make it fun, but we sat until he went. So we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to that method. So I would say they're the 2 suggestions I have. Look at modifying your schedule, or maybe think about option 2 when we talk about it.
Danielle, I also want to just touch back to what Rachel was saying earlier about that awareness. So if this child is having the phone when he's on the potty, that can be just so fun and exciting that you can't even pay attention to what's happening with your body. So it might be another thing, like Danielle was saying, like try to adapt the environment one thing at a time. that might be something also to look into if your child is more aware when maybe he doesn't have the phone while he's on the potty, and maybe he gets something else really fun, while he's on the potty, whatever that might be for your kiddo.
Wonderful point, Isabel, right? Maybe do a book, maybe sing a song, right? And maybe they get the phone as their reinforcement for when they actually go, right? So trying to kind of modify your reinforcement versus what they actually get while they're sitting, another good suggestion.
Yeah, and Danielle, I think what you said too addresses some of the other questions that have come up in general, just like having varying things that, for reinforcement. So we're going to use this thing that's like a little bit fun, but not over the top to, reward the sitting on the toilet. And, whether that be a book that they're looking through or something that's sort of like moderate fun, but not too high up there. And then for those bigger things, really upping the ante. And that's when you want to, really go over the top and reward them when they're going on the potty or whatever it is for where your child is.
Yeah. Good point. One more question, Braylon?
Absolutely. Okay. We have kind of close to the same problem, but a little bit different. So my son has no problem going on the potty, but he doesn't know what to do when he's on there. How can I help him understand what to do?
Oh, so he's okay with sitting, but he's not voiding when he's on.
Yes.
So, kind of similar question, but the sitting is good. The fact that he's sitting is a wonderful start. So, kiddos have varying sensations, right? And some of them know more when they're going than when they don't. So, when we're talking about schedule training, which we're going to talk about next, it doesn't really matter the sensation that they're feeling because you want to catch them when their bodies tell them they have to go. So I would say look at how often you're taking him, okay? The more often that you're taking them, like the schedule, maybe it's every 15 or 20 minutes, you're going to catch them when he has to go. And then you're going to reward that. So even if right now they don't understand the sensation of what do I do when I'm here, if you can catch them right when they have to go on the potty and reward it, they're going to make that association. Oh, I went, now I get rewarded. I want this to happen more often, right? So that'll be something that we're going to talk more about with scheduling, but I think that that'll be the kicker, right? If we can catch them by getting a schedule that works and catching them when they have to go and rewarding it, they'll make that positive association. Did anyone want to add anything else about that before we move on?
I was just going to say sometimes that modeling piece can be a part of this as well. Some people find it very odd, but it might be helpful for your child just to see what you're doing in the bathroom when you're going in there. If they have a older sister or brother, that might be helpful too, just so it's normalized as well. We have a lot of our own feelings about privacy and all of that, and as we want to respect your family and their wishes, of course, but that might be something helpful too as a teaching tool, just to show them exactly what everyone does when they are in the bathroom.
Awesome. Great point. All right, so we're going to move on, but keep putting those questions in the Q&A. They're awesome questions. We'll have one more opportunity, to ask questions. So some nitty-gritty, just some things to think about before we get into the schedules. Individualize for your child and family. Okay, I'm going to go over some schedules, but again, this needs to be practical. This needs to work for your home, work for your family. So do what you are comfortable with and what's feasible for your home. We talked about this, but I'm going to say it again. Sitting time should be fun, okay? Books, songs, fun timers. I know my son used to just like looking at the timer because they have like animals on it and stuff. So that's another great way just to pass the time while they're sitting, but keep the kiddos engaged. Maybe you're going to read a social story about going to the potty. Maybe you're going to let them color. You could hold something hard for them to color on. If this is a challenge, take a step back, okay? Like Isabel said, you can always try again at another time. Once we push our kids to the point where this is a fight, this is aversive, it's going to be an uphill battle. So maybe take a couple steps back and just reward them for coming into the bathroom or sitting on the toilet, okay? Once you're ready to move forward with the actual schedule training, kids need to have access to beverages. Their bladders should stay full. When we're taking them on these schedules, we want to make sure their bladders are full so the opportunity increases for them to be able to avoid on the toilet. Also, when we get to our schedule training, the pull-ups, the diapers are gone. It's underwear time, okay? So once you're ready for the next step, you've worked on the routines, they're able to sit, right? We're going to work on intervals, some interval timer training. Pull-ups are gone, okay? Also, pull-ups are not underwear. Pull-ups, again, I talked about marketing ploys. Pull-ups are marketing ploys, right? Because they know that parents want to potty train and they are more expensive than regular diapers, right? The only benefit to a pull-up is you can pull them up and down, right? But they're doing that with their pants too, right? So we want kids to feel uncomfortable when they have accidents, okay? Accidents are bad. Going on the potty is good. They are the associations we want to make when we toilet train, right? We put a little spot down here. What about kids with tube feeds, right? Those kids are not excluded. We can work on potty training too, okay? The tracking is going to be an important piece. Tracking when their diapers are wet or soiled. And the schedule training might be a good option, especially if they have the set feed times at certain times. They might be avoiding very reliably. And we have to make sure that we get them to the potty when they need to go. So start tracking, right? And then set your schedule based on their typical voiding schedule. Get them to the potty when they are most likely to go. Some kids, depending on where they're at, may never get off a timer schedule. And that's okay too, right? They might be able to go independently with assistance. Someone brings them there and then they go every 30 minutes when a timer goes off on their phone or something like that. That's okay too, right? Depending on your child's abilities, okay? All right, here we go. This is what you guys all came for, right? The schedule training. So again, be flexible with this. These are just options that we're putting out there. Schedule training option 1 is taking your kiddo to the bathroom at least every 15 to 20 minutes. And we're going to not keep them on the potty for very long. I put no more than like 5 minutes. Okay, we want this to be, they're going in very frequently, right? So we're not going to keep them on too long when they're in there, okay? So about every 15 to 20 minutes, we're going to go and we're going to sit for no more than 5 minutes. You can set a 5-minute timer on your phone, okay? Or if they actually go, if they avoid, then they are done, okay? If they don't void, okay, and your 5 minutes are up, you're going to ask them or help them to put their clothing back on. Go through the routine of washing hands, flushing the whole bathroom routine, and then they're allowed to leave the bathroom, okay? If they do void when they're on there, they're getting their potty prize, their positive reinforcement, and you're having your party, okay? And you want to do this while they're still sitting. Some people are like, well, wait, I'm going to give them candy while they're sitting? Yes, right? So if you don't want them having a lollipop while they're sitting there, then do something different. Maybe do like a little gummy lifesaver or something that's smaller and you can give them right when they're there. But reinforcement is most effective when it's immediate, right? So we want to give them their reinforcement right then and there on the potty, okay? We want to provide as little verbal directions as possible when they're getting back dressed. And I'm going to tell you why. This is especially important for if they don't go, if they don't void, right? We don't want to be inadvertently reinforcing them if they're not peeing or pooping, right? So just help them get dressed. If you can limit your verbal directions, limit the verbal directions. And then time to go. Back out to whatever you're doing. And then you're going to make sure you set a timer for yourself for another 15 to 20 minutes. While you're waiting to come back to the potty, you can do what is called a dry check. So this is another way to avoid accidents. If every 5 or 10 minutes, they just check their own pants. They can just pat them. You can just say, oh, are you dry? And if they are, you can say, oh, great job keeping your pants dry. Okay, it's another opportunity to reinforce keeping them dry. If they are wet during a dry check, we're going to talk about a positive practice strategy that you could use for if they are wet or if they have an accident. But first, I'm going to talk about schedule training option number 2. Okay, so that was training option 1. This is training option 2. And then we're going to talk about positive practice, okay? And I know you guys might have questions, so just put them in the Q&A, okay? And we'll have time to answer them, okay? So, schedule training option 2 is kind of what I was alluding to earlier. This is like the sit till you go method. I was going to say we don't use this at school because we don't want a kiddo sitting in a bathroom like the entire day. But on this schedule, what you do is you take the kiddo to the bathroom maybe every 30 minutes, but you keep them on for like 20 minutes or until they go completely. So that's a lot of time on the toilet. I would say I haven't seen, besides with my son and his BMs, which I talked to you a little bit about, before I worked at Easter Sales, I saw this method attempting to be implemented, but not so much being successful. But I want to put it out there because it is an option. And for kids that hold, especially for BMs, if they are already trained for urination, right? This could be something you could do for bowel movements, okay? So that's longer intervals, longer time in between when you take them, but they sit for a long time. Okay, the rest of the procedure is the same. If they void, they get their prize and their party. If they don't, and that 20 minutes is up, you help them to get their clothes back on with as little attention as possible. Still go through the flushing, hand washing routine, and you can still do those dry checks. Okay, so I'm going to go on to the positive practice slide. Now, I have to give a little disclaimer that this is like a punishment procedure. Now, I am PBIS all the way, positive behaviors, and we don't typically do punishment procedures. So potty training is one of the only time that me as a behavior analyst ever recommends a punishment procedure because we want, again, accidents to be bad, going on the toilet to be good. That's literally what we're trying to teach kids with these procedures, okay? They get the prize and the party for going, and they get positive practice for accidents or if they're wet. So if they have an accident, a visible accident, make sure you have them touch their wet pants, and then you have a statement. So a statement is like, oh, we don't pee on the chair, we pee on the potty. And then we walk them, guide them back to the bathroom, have them sit on the potty quickly. Now, if they didn't urinate all the way, you could have them sit for a minute or two if you think they still need to void, right? But if they had a full-blown accident, there's nothing left in there, it's going to be a quick sit, okay? And then they're going to pull their wet stuff back up. You're probably going to have to help with this. And then you're going to walk back to where they had their accident, and you're going to do that again. Oh, we don't pee on the chair, we pee on the potty. You walk them back, okay? And then you walk them back to the place where they had the accident. Now, you can repeat this procedure like 5 to 10 times. For our kids, we never really do it more than a couple times, okay? Again, use your judgment as a parent if this is something that you would want to do. Some kids, we don't do this at all. After the last practice, then you have the kiddo assist in putting their dry clothes on. And maybe even helping to clean where the accident occurred. Now, we know a 3 to 5, 6-year-old is not going to really clean that, so it might just be bringing you over a paper towel. Any part of this positive practice, you do not want to give a lot of attention. So you're getting very limited verbal prompts. You're going to use more gestures and limit your vocals to the whatever phrase you're using. We don't pee on the pot, we don't pee on the chair, we pee on the potty. Okay? If at any time the kiddo is laughing or smiling, it means this is not working, right? It means they are enjoying the positive practice and they're supposed to not like it. So it's done at that point, right? If they're smiling or laughing, just direct them back to the bathroom and help them to change into their dry clothing, okay? We are not going to use positive practice for any sort of bowel movements. Okay, you would only require that they assist in like the changing of their clothes, if possible. If you have a schedule and you know when they're having bowel movement accidents, you can try to alter your schedule so they're on the potty at the time when they are having their bowel movements. Or maybe have them sit for a little bit of a longer period during that time. Maybe it's a combination of, okay, when we're throughout the day, we're just going on this 15 to 20 minute schedule, but I know after lunch, around 1 o'clock, you have a bowel movement. So at that time, we're going to sit a little bit longer. Okay, that's an okay option too. Okay, so again, I have my disclaimer down there too. We want to make accidents something that they don't like. This is a punishment procedure, and you can choose not to do that part of it, and that's okay. Okay, so real quick before questions. After you start in underwear in your schedule training, what's after that, okay? Be prepared to go out into the real world, right? New bathrooms bring new challenges, okay? Things like automated flushers, sinks, dryers. Talk about sensory, right? My son, he has typical development. However, he is very sensitive to sound. Okay, that's just, I think everybody has like a variety of sensory that they are more sensitive to, and he's just super sensitive to sound. So he hates those dryers. We haven't been in any public bathrooms lately, but when we go, I cover his ears for him because he doesn't like the sound. And that's okay, right? So there's a tip here. You can place a Post-it note if you have them in your purse or backpack over the sensor so the automatic toilets don't flush if that's going to be scary for your kiddo. Okay, or maybe use the paper towels instead of the automated hand dryers. We often do that instead. Transportation, if we're talking about we're back in school or just going from one place to the next, if you're still at a 15 to 20 minute interval schedule and you are going for a 30-minute car ride, it's okay to put on a pull-up or a diaper. Like, right? You can take it off or change when you get to your location. That's okay. Don't stress about it. Transportation for us was like the last time period where we had them wearing a pull-up or a diaper. Bedtime. Holding it all night and waking up to go is it's a harder skill. Okay. Diapers at night, again, are okay to start, right? And one thing we didn't talk about with our interval schedules is you start on at 15 to 20 minutes, and then as they're successful and as their accidents decrease and their successes on the toilets increase, you increase that schedule, right? To get to a more natural interval when you're going to the toilet. So it goes from 15 to 20 minutes, maybe to 25, 30 minutes, and then maybe to 40 minutes, right? So you're going to increase that, right? But overnight is the longest stretch that they would have to hold it. So that's okay if that's the last thing that you tackle. And there are some strategies for reducing nighttime accidents. You can double up, which is what we did. So like he would go to the potty, we still do it actually. So my son goes to the bathroom like before his bath, but then right before bed he goes again. Right, so double up on the opportunities to go to the bathroom before going to bed, or you can do a nighttime wake up. My sister did this for my nephew who was having some accidents at night, some bedwetting. She would set a timer to wake him up around like 1 because his accidents were around like 2 in the morning, and then she would prompt him to go to the bathroom and then bring him back to bed. So if you are at that stage, there are some strategies you can try. Talked about a little bit about pooping and bowel movements, but most kids start the urination or the peeing in the potty first, and then we get this a lot about kids requesting to go, right? The initiation. That's after all this, you guys, and we can talk a little bit more about it, but some parents think that their kiddos can't communicate, they can't ask, they shouldn't start trying, and that's not true. You can still start trying, even if your kiddo doesn't have vocal language or any sort of functional communication yet, okay? But what you can do, and I'll share when I send you guys out the resources, a visual of potty, right? That when you start interval training, you can just gesture to it. You can have the visual and say, oh, it's time to go to the bathroom, right? And you're using your language, you're pointing to the visual, right? You can maybe have them around your house, you can have them on your potty so they associate the picture with the actual bathroom, okay? And then once you're getting them on, once they're successful with their schedule training, then you can start to transfer that from you saying, oh, it's time to go to the bathroom, to say, oh, tell me, is it time to go to the bathroom? And then make her repeat it back. Yeah, it's time to go to the bathroom. I have to go to the bathroom. And you transfer that skill over. If your child uses pictures to communicate, if they use a device, any means, they can use that to communicate the need. But that comes after all of this. So don't have communication be a barrier to starting to work on this. Okay? And then you also want to fade the rewards. Some people say, well, look, oh, I'm going to give my kiddos, whatever it is, chocolate or M&Ms or, pretzels forever on the potty. And this was hard for my son. It's hard for a lot of kids, right? But eventually you fade out the rewards. What we did is we kicked the reward for the bowel movement, right? After he was really super successful, we faded him for the urinations. And then, oh, if you want your tablet, we're going to go poop on the potty. And then you get your tablet, right? So bumping it up that level for, as they get more successful, we're going to increase our expectations of them. Okay? All right. A lot of talking. I know you guys probably have questions. Braylon, can you throw some questions from the Q&A?
Absolutely. All right. Okay, so we have one that says, my son still had very inconsistent BMs, and they're usually loose. How exactly do I train using the potty for BMs without having a huge accident to clean up every time?
That's a tough one, right? So BMs are inconsistent. So again, this is with no medical history. I would just say check with your doctor just to make sure there's nothing you should be doing to get him more regular, or anything you can do to get him more regular or different consistency. Some kids, because of other medical complications, that's not possible, right? So I just say check with your doctor first, okay? If you're like, I already did that, this is just how it is, I would say still work on the urination first, okay? And try to increase opportunities to get on the toilet. The longer you wait for that kiddo, the more likely they're going to have a BM accident. So if you can do shorter intervals first, start there. If you're already peeing on the potty, but they're just having these accidents with their bowel movements because they can't hold it, I said that's something to talk to the doctor about. Do you guys have any other suggestions for this parent?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's important to master the P first and get them some feelings of success and ownership with that before you even start worrying about the BMs. And it can be significantly you can master the pottying, the peeing, and then it can be a while until they're really getting good with the BMs. So just don't get discouraged if you're making progress with pee and you're still not making progress with poop. It's a much harder skill. Danielle emphasized that earlier, but I think just getting that mindset of where we can work on now, and it's okay to wait on that one.
Rachel, did you want to add anything?
Sorry, unmuting. No, I definitely agree with Danielle about checking with the doctor just to ensure that, all of the GI stuff is kind of accounted for, and that they also kind of give the okay for this is how it's going to be, and this is great to start with.
Great. Thanks. Good question. Okay, Braylon, another one.
All righty. What's the next step if positive practice is not working? And how long is too long?
I think I know who asked this question. I get this question a lot. So the question is, how long do we wait if it's not working, as in they're still having accidents and you're engaging in positive practice? I guess it's the question. So positive practice, I feel like in the classroom setting, it's very hard to be effective. Okay, I'll say this for classroom setting, and I'll talk about it at home. Because there are so many variables in the classroom. And there are so many ways for kids to get attention and reinforcement as they're walking back and forth, right? So it's hard to be effective in the classroom. At home, I did do this with my son, and he hated it. He was not having it. We did it like maybe once or twice, walking back and forth, and he did not like it. So I guess if it doesn't work, stop doing it, right? If you're like, this is doing nothing, they enjoy it, or you're not seeing a decrease in accidents, right? Because punishment is you're presenting something, right, that's going to decrease the likelihood of the behavior occurring. So if you're doing this procedure and it's not decreasing the number of accidents, it's not effective, right? So stop doing it. And then I would maybe up your interval times, right? If you're going every half an hour, bump it to 15 or 20 minutes. You want to try to avoid the accident, right? You want to try to catch them on the potty and give them reinforcement. Maybe you need to change or up your reinforcement for your successes, right? That's what I see most often. We get in this like mindset of like one size fits all for reinforcement. We're like, oh, we have sticker charts, and in my class, everybody uses stickers for potty training, and it works for everybody. Well, guess what? Not every kid likes stickers, right? So maybe we need to change the reinforcement, change the schedule. Working on the front end with your reinforcement is always going to be easier than trying to initiate a punishment procedure. Okay, so I hope that helps. Another question. Well, one more.
My daughter loves to play in the potty, and it's been so hard to potty train. Any tips?
Okay, so I'll have Rachel jump in a second, but I'm just going to give my 2 cents first. If she likes playing in the water, right, like in the actual water, let's make sure on the front end, like before this, we're giving her access to water play and kind of satiating her on that throughout the day. There are potty locks, so you can lock the lid when she's not actually going on the potty. So that'll help, like throughout the day, she's not like getting in and playing in it. But if she's sitting and putting her hand in, which I have seen that before, so they're kind of trying to reach down as they're sitting, you're going to have to be in super close proximity to try to block if you're using your regular toilet. The other option might be try to use the little potty first and not like a little potty chair instead of the big potty, because there's no water in that one. So there's some suggestions. Rachel, do you want to add anything?
No, nothing different. I love that idea about incorporating the water play throughout the day if she's clearly seeking that. That sounds super fun. And that's exactly what I was going to say about just trying the little potty chair that doesn't have any water, so that she can learn that she will be reinforced, and what she's supposed to do there is go potty. And then by the time she transitions to the big potty, hopefully that reinforcement, would be strong enough that she understands what the expectations are for using the potty.
Good. Awesome. So thank you guys so much. So if there are other questions in the Q&A, what I'm going to have, what we're going to do, I'll have you guys leave, but I'll make sure we copy and paste all of them, and I will send an email answering the rest of the questions with Rachel and Isabel's input as well, to make sure that we did address what we could. I know we couldn't get to everything because of time, so if there are other questions, we can send the responses via email. I'll also send you guys the PowerPoint. And I'm going to send you the sample data sheets. I will send you the preference assessments and some great resources that Rachel put together as well. We'll send those to you in an email. So I just want to show you the resources. You'll get this PowerPoint so you can click on the links. There are some links for adapted clothing that might help with toilet training. There are some really cool potty songs. One of them are like Elmo. There are some different, was one with sign language. Again, there are some apps. Some of them do cost money, so I would try the free ones first, see if you like them. Timers, those fun timers. Here's the name of some of them. You can look up to see which ones you have access to. There's some books and some read-alouds. Now that we're home, read-alouds are like a big thing now, so I put some links to read-alouds that have to do with the potty. I want to have a quick shout-out. We have a note here about at-home support, ABA, wraparound, behavioral health supports. So there are specialists like myself that not in my role currently, but that work in the community that are able to help with behavioral supports in home. Toilet training could be something they could also support you with. If you don't already have any sort of behavior support at home and you're interested in that, you can email one of us and we will be very happy to give you that information about how to start that process to see if you're eligible for that sort of support as well. There is some links to the potty chairs in the back. I don't know why they're so funky and long, but there they are. I just want to, Isabel, go ahead. I'm just going to go back to the beginning. The first slide does have all of our email information on it. So when you get this PowerPoint, you can email us specifically if you have questions that weren't addressed in the training.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more resource that I just thought of, which is you guys are already using diapers, but if your child is over the age of 3 and they have a disability in the state of Pennsylvania, you are eligible to receive free diapers. So that is something you can call your insurance and get connected with a durable medical equipment company. So, you know, if you're in this process and your child has special needs, that can be a big help because those things rack up. They do. They cost a lot of money. So if you'd like more specific information about that or about the ABA supports like Danielle mentioned, that's really my neck of the woods in terms of resources. So please don't hesitate to get in touch and I can walk you through the specifics.
Awesome. And I do apologize for those of you that did not get the translation services to work out. We will follow up with those parents to set something up so we can specifically set up times to go through this with you with a translator. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing, but thank you guys so much. I hope this was helpful. Yeah, and we'll email you all of the resources. Okay, so thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.